I'm a former public school teacher of 15 years. I taught in California, and there are teachers that are getting trained to treat children differently based on the color of their skin, and that's a form of discrimination and racism.
Now listen, man, my faith talk is the word of God. The just shall live by faith.
Hi, and welcome to Ignite Voices TV. I am here with the powerhouse, Kelly Fontanilla. She has an incredible story of being in the education system. We have an uncover story here. I know she has many uncover stories, but I wanted to invite her here today because I'm really passionate about getting the truth out to y'all. Where Ignite Voices, shifting the culture's narrative, and I believe that that's exactly what you're going to do today. So Kelly, go ahead and spill the beans.
I'm a former public school teacher of 15 years. I taught in California, in the Central Coast, Salinas, California, Monterey, California. I loved what I did. I was born to be a teacher. I taught middle school and high school. I taught the English learners, so the kids that were immigrating to this country illegally, legally, and they're here for a better life. And I loved what I did.
There to teach,
I taught the kids that were behind in reading as well. Yes. And then this last 5 years, I saw this terrifying agenda take over our public schools. Actually, it's been since Obama, but it really got ramped up the last 5 years. Yes, and so I decided to expose some of the lessons that were being given to me to teach my students that I refused to teach. Lessons promoting Black Lives Matter and comparing it to the Civil Rights Movement. And yes, Black Lives Matter. Black people are, we love them.
Let's do a disclaimer there. Okay,
exactly.
We are for Black Lives.
But that is not about Black Lives. That's about a defund police movement, and that is also they're very Marxist and they're very leftist, and they don't support the nuclear family. And they have an agenda.
They're destructive.
Yes, they're destructive. They're looting. They're not the same as the Civil Rights Movement.
Right.
And my district gave me a lesson that compared Black Lives Matter to the Civil Rights Movement. And they said, if you don't support Black Lives Matter, you wouldn't support the Civil Rights Movement. And I was like, I can't teach this. And my students, that I taught all Black and brown kids my whole career. My first job was in Compton. And those kids can absolutely meet the standards.
I'm from California.
Yes.
When you say Compton in California, everybody knows. Okay?
Everybody knows, yeah.
Right,
they have hard lives. So those kids had hard lives, but I had high standards for them, and they could meet it. And there's an agenda to lower the standards for Black America because of systemic racism.
Yes.
And
they're actually
and that is the systemic racism.
The thing that they're trying to do to help is actually. Like literally dumbing down society, culture.
That is the systemic racism. It is alive and well. It's just happening in a way that is very clever by lowering the standards for certain skin color. That is a racist.
If you haven't heard that before, because you hear about people being against CRT, the critical race theory, and then you're like, oh, right away you put them into a bucket, and you're like, oh, this is all they all think this way. They're from this specific party, and then you close off. You don't want to hear anything because you're like, oh, they're not inclusive. I want to tell you, we're here to shift the narrative because here you have a teacher who cares about her children. She's working with Black and brown children, okay, and she loves these children enough to not lie to them.
Exactly. And I'm glad you mentioned critical race theory because I actually wrote a 25-page guide against critical race theory for Blexit, which is Candace Owens' organization.
Wow.
And it's a free guide for parents, and it has copies of the lessons, what they look like, how to spot it, what to do to fight it, and how to undo the indoctrination that is critical race theory. And if you don't know what critical race theory is, it's in very simplistic forms. It's basically training children to put a color lens on and always judge people by the color of their skin instead of the content of their character, and change the way they treat them because of that. And there are teachers that are getting trained to treat children differently based on the color of their skin, and that's a form of discrimination and racism.
And I love that. This is why this is our first time even having a conversation, but I could tell already just by meeting her that I was going to be able to have this very important conversation because I burn with this. Listen, I'm a mother of change. I have 8 children. I was created to be born onto this earth to go and tell mothers to be protecting their children. And when you send your children to a system that is indoctrinating them to mess up their mental capacity, to dumb them down, to make them hate other people, to make them stop and look at the people's color of their skin instead of who they are as a person, who God created them to be, that is demonic. And I'm glad that we're here today because you see I'm passionate about this.
It is demonic, and it's an agenda to destroy a generation, and I'm seeing it. You know, I taught for 15 years, and I saw my students slowly become, you know, teenagers. Of course, they have their ups and downs, but in general, they're happy, they giggle, they have fun, they're with their friends.
Right.
And I'm seeing this new generation come in this last 5 years, and they're all so depressed. In fact, during the lockdowns, which were terrible, our kids, 50% of them the girls were idealizing suicide.
Wow.
And this is a crisis.
Terrible.
This is a crisis. There was just a study done by the military, saying that 77% of this youngest generation, these 18 and under kids, are unfit for military, meaning they are too fat, or they are on drugs, or they are mentally ill. 77%. It's going to be 100% in 10 years if we don't do something now.
Well, we actually, my kids and I, we just shot an episode on that specific topic.
Yes.
We actually looked into it, and our young people they're not qualified. Did you hear that? I just said our young people are not qualified. Why are they not qualified? Because they're being indoctrinated by a broken school system who is teaching them how to be double-minded, how to not have a personal self-identity, to start questioning their sex, to start, questioning their gender. And then when you start questioning your body and you start going crazy, okay, it's a school
Well, it's
system.
a form of self-hate too.
Yes.
And teenagers, they go through their ups and downs. And what's weird with the trans agenda is that in the past, it used to be more boys that were transitioning to girls. And it was very rare. We would have one in the whole high school.
Right.
And now it's 2 to 3 in every classroom. And now it's shifted to more girls wanting to be trans, because we go through a lot when we're going through puberty, and we go through a lot of self-hate. And if we don't meet the beauty standards, and so they're finding a way out by being trans, and they're finding a way to reject their bodies, because they already are rejecting their bodies. They don't fit the beauty standard.
Right.
And they're using the trans agenda to really destroy our girls. And they need to learn to love themselves just how they are, because they made them beautiful. And they need to learn how to take care of themselves, and then they'll feel so much better and want to be the woman that God wanted them to be.
We are coming to this end.
Yeah.
I see our next guest is here right
Yes.
now. So as we're coming to this end, I want to have you come back.
Yes. Well, I do have, can I really quickly share my
yes,
solution?
Yes.
I opened an online K-12 academy for parents to pull their kids from public school, and it's called Exodus Institute. And they can find information on, I think, exodus.org, and it's fully accredited. And
Thank you for giving that.
It's for parents to pull their kids from public school, and it's free for parents in Arizona and Florida, because we can take vouchers.
All right. Well,
Yeah.
he has a solution, and look into it. Everybody, make sure you take time, check it out. I'm EmmaSara with Ignite Voices, where we are having bold conversations that are blazing change. Go out and blaze change. I'm EmmaSara. Thank you so much.
Of course.
Of voices that will not remain silent, because our nation is in crisis.
Yeah, a fire does need to be started in the voice of the citizens.
It's heartbreaking that our country is getting destroyed.
People don't realize how bad it is.
It is the same what is happening.
It is speaking the truth and bringing light into darkness.
Ignite Voices is bringing different voices in who are saying enough is enough.
How can we sit back and complain when we see our country collapsing, one community after other?
Not even a red or blue issue, it's a red, white, and blue issue.
And we believe in freedom.
We are diverting the lie that we should hate our nation, that we should not understand who we are as a people. It is causing confusion in the heart of humanity.
I saw this terrifying agenda take over our public schools.
That all sounds very negative, but here's the good news. You are set free.
That's exactly it. You do have power in the society. It's not too late.
Expose what's going on here in our country.
It's to get to the mothers to protect the kids,
so that we don't pass those problems to our children.
You want to take action.
So the only answer to hate speech or bad speech is more speech?
Within that is the freedom of religion. Without expression, the right to discuss our ideas and differences, we would get nowhere.
And why is it so important that individuals share this message?
Because individuals build families, families form communities, and communities, they shape nations. That's why it's important for us to continue to keep this torch lit.
And that's what we're doing. We are here to shift the culture's narrative. We're here to blaze change. I'm Vaughn Kensington.
I'm EmmaSara,
host of the Ignite Voices TV show. Remember, keep that torch lit. Go to ignitevoices.com. Go out and blaze change.
When I was 4 years old, I was cross-dressing with my grandmother's help and got that idea that there was something wrong with me as a boy, and that lasted throughout my life. And so looking back retrospectively, I can see now that being cross-dressed by my grandmother was emotional and psychological child abuse.
Absolutely. Hi, and welcome to Ignite Voices TV. We have a very special guest today. I'm so glad that I got this moment to talk to you because I'm with Walt Heyer, and he has to me, it's a very significant story for such a time as this. There's so much confusion with the body, just in general, people in general, whether they're young or old. There's so much confusion about gender. And Walt actually identified as a female for 8 years.
That's right.
So why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself and your story? I'd love to hear it.
Yeah, well, I started my journey in 1944 when I was 4 years old. I was a child that was cross-dressing with my grandmother's help and got that idea that there was something wrong with me as a boy, and that lasted throughout my life. And I was physically abused as a young boy. I was sexually abused as a young boy by my uncle. And so in looking back retrospectively, I can see now that being cross-dressed by my grandmother was emotional and psychological child abuse.
Absolutely.
And then physical child abuse by my father and sexual child abuse by my uncle. So those things I had to deal with as a youngster, but this was before they had any words or terms. You were talking in the 1950s, I started identifying as a female Crystal West, but I wasn't cross-dressing. I was just in my head, at that time. But I had been cross-dressing privately, all alone. I never went out in public. I was just doing this because of what Grandma did. What happened was that indoctrination into that whole area confused me.
I bet.
It's about confusion. And what I realized is that really wasn't about gender. What it really is about abuse, emotional and psychological abuse. And I had dysphoria, but it wasn't specific to gender. It was having been sexually abused and physically abused. All those things happened. So going through life, the only thing that I could attach to it was I saw Christine Jorgensen in 1955, I think it was, came out in the news and said transsexual, made the headlines. And I thought, well, that must be who I is. That was the first time that I even saw anything like that. So then I began to realize, well, maybe that's what I was. And so I went through this, and I ended up getting married to a female, and because the issue was never about homosexuality.
Wow, that's something they need to hear.
It was never about homosexuality. It was about gender identity. It was about my self-identity, my self-worth. And so I got married. I had 2 children. I had a job, but I was struggling with what happened early in my life, being cross-dressed, being physically and sexually abused. Those are traumas. That's a traumatic childhood. What really should have taken place, I can say today, would have been to see a trauma therapist as a young person.
Okay.
And so what I know is, because I've gone through it, I went through the hormones. I went through the hormones for 12 years. I had the surgeries. I did all the protocols. It does not change your gender. You cannot change your gender.
Yes.
It's never happened. I even challenged my surgeon and the person who approved me for surgery in Superior Court of California, San Mateo, to prove to Superior Court of California that what they did with hormones and surgery to me, following all the protocols, did it change your gender? They had to write an affidavit to court saying, no, it doesn't change your gender. Your gender doesn't change. What does change is your persona. That's the correct terminology.
This is such important information. And so many times, the reason why it's so important to have you on our show is people have these ideas in their head, but unless you've walked in somebody's shoes, and here he is, somebody who's actually lived it, breathed it, has come out the other side, he has some information for you. And this is the thing that is fascinating to me, is this was so many decades ago.
It was 40 years ago, and I've worked with thousands of individuals who write to me at sexchangeregret.com, my website, and I've been helping people, all of them, come out the other side saying they realized they couldn't change their gender. They realized their life was destroyed. I work with young people who in their 20s had surgery and they can't father a child, or a woman who can't give birth to a baby because of what happened to them. They wanted to be mothers. They wanted to be fathers. Their life is destroyed. And so for a female, male hormones really is destructive in many ways, to their bone structure, to their shoulders, to their voice, their beards, all those things, many of them can't be changed. And so the regret is high, very high. I have people write me from 3 weeks after surgery to 40 years after surgery, regretted having done it. Most of the people end up having regret between 5 and 12 years.
And why do you think that is?
Well, I think they get tired of playing the game because it's just a game.
Exhausting.
It's, this whole thing is, for many of them, it's just a fad. For many of them, it's called a social contagion. For many of them, they got online and they looked at TikTok. I've talked to many people who use TikTok as a way to sort of, go through this process. I took hormones today. I took hormone, and they do the whole year process as a way to show the world who they are. But they realize everything you do about this whole idea of being transgender, which you can't, is you end up destroying who you are.
Wow, that's right there. Yeah.
Here you go. You take hormones, you devalue who you are as a girl or a boy. You devalue yourself because you cannot perform and play out your role as a male or female. You can't produce children. You can't father children. These are critical things. And so when you devalue who you are and then you take surgery, you destroy who you are. How do you get your life back? Well, you get it through Jesus Christ.
Amen.
And so that's what I did.
And I know we have a short amount of time here. We were supposed to do a full episode, but I'm glad that we grabbed you here for a short time. But there's some things, because this is Ignite Voices, and so that we are shifting the culture's narrative, and especially about this gender issue. And one of the little things I want to hit on is the fact that you said it destroys the body. And I have watched testimonial after testimonial of people who have had their body parts change, and things hurt and things are uncomfortable, and they're living with pain now. Now they're living with emotional pain. They're living with physical pain.
Yes.
And then, in some cases, some people are abused. And so there's a lot of confusion. And so now you have the emotional baggage of the abuse, but now you have the baggage of this confusion. So maybe you can.
Yeah. And it's further abuse when they do this to them. And you're right. What we found out is about 50% of the people will suffer even from surgical issues.
Yes.
Right. They have things they have to keep going back, and they keep trying to have surgery. I even sat across from a guy in a coffee shop that had 167 sex change surgeries. They kept going back and forth.
Wow.
And he looked like
terrible.
He'd been in a fire. So what I want everybody to understand is that you are destroying who you are. And you have to sit back and ask yourself this question: why don't you like who you are? That's a serious question to ask. And why do you want to erase who you are? Because that's what this is about. You change your name, you change your looks. You don't change your gender. The whole thing is a facade. It's a masquerade.
Absolutely. And, as we're wrapping it up, because I know you have this next interview to catch, is there are moms, and if we can just even address the camera here in our audience, there are parents, moms and dads who have kids who are going through this gender confusion, and they're saying, well, what do I do because the school system is pressuring me to call them by different pronouns? What do I do? They're saying if I don't let my kids identify as this different gender, that they might commit suicide. What do you have to say to that parent?
Well, what we know is that they're 19 times more likely to commit suicide if you allow them to have hormones and go through the surgery. Those are the statistics. They're done in Sweden. They follow everybody in Sweden, done it for over 30 years. They've tracked it. They have the records. No, they're more likely to commit suicide after they take hormones and have surgery. What you need to do is find out why your child doesn't want to be who they are. What are they struggling with? Is it something in the family? Is it some illness in the family? Did somebody die in the family? There's something happened that caused them to not like who they are, or they're involved in a social contagion with their friends group, or they found out something online and they got hooked, indoctrinated to this idea online. You need to find out what it is. You should check their computer search history to see what they're looking at on their computer. A lot of times they're being indoctrinated by the computer. But you don't have a trans kid. There are no such thing as a trans kid. There's no such thing as a transgender. There are only people who identify as a transgender. There are no transgenders, and no one has ever transitioned.
Well, that is extremely powerful, and I hope the moms and dads who are out there, a parent who is out there who is dealing with this, has learned from this episode, because it's powerful. And even those who are considering going through procedures, to know that it's destructive, know that there's not peace. And even if there's people who say, oh, I feel so much better now. It's a facade. It's temporary. It's like a temporary high.
Yeah, it's a temporary reprieve. And then you wake up with a hangover either 2-3 years down the road, and then you say, I've destroyed my life. Hey, they write me and say, Walt, can you get my life back? You can't get the body parts back, but we can redeem and restore your life. We can help you find your way back. You don't have to stay that way. Even if they destroyed your life, we can help you find it. Sexchangeregret.com.
Thank you. So I was going to say, is there anywhere else that they might want to look at, or is that one spot?
Sexchangeregret.com.
All right. You heard it here from Walt Heyer. He has said so much today. I hope you guys took this to heart. Share it with other people. Share this video. And remember, y'all, go out and blaze change. Thank you, Walt, for being with us today. And God bless y'all.
My
I'm
pleasure.
EmmaSara.
Thank
Go
you.
out and blaze change. Thank you. Ignite Voices is a platform and a TV show for voices to come together so that we can ignite them. We don't want to cover the voices. We want to ignite the voices so that they can be bold and blaze change.
Hello everybody, I'm Vaughn Kensington here with Ignite Voices TV. I'm here with my mother and host of the Ignite Voices TV show, EmmaSara. Can you tell them a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm EmmaSara, and I am not only the host of the Ignite Voices TV show, but we also have a second show, the Mother of Change show, and I'm the founder and the president of the Mother of Change Foundation. Our goal is to impact families across the globe, but especially in our nation. Vaughn Kensington, our nation is in a crisis.
Yeah, our nation is in a crisis, and that's kind of why we started Ignite Voices TV. We're out here, we're going to shift the culture's narrative, we're going to blaze change. So remember, you guys, whatever you do not stand down, do not hold yourself back. You do have power in the society. It's not too late. We have a big voice. We can ignite voices around all of us. So remember, go out and blaze change.
Before you know it, it is that little ember that starts a whole fire across our nation of voices that will not remain silent, because our nation is in crisis.
Yeah, a fire does need to be started in the voice of this.
Ignite Voices is bringing different voices in who are saying enough is enough.
How can we sit back and complain when we see our country collapsing, one community after other?
Not even a red or blue issue, it's a red, white, and blue issue.
And we believe in freedom.
We are diverting the lie that we should hate our nation, that we should not understand who we are as a people. It is causing confusion in the heart of humanity.
I saw this terrifying agenda take over our public schools.
That all sounds very negative, but here's the good news. You are set free.
That's exactly it. You do have power in the society. It's not too late.
Expose what's going on here in our country.
It's to get to the mothers to protect the kids so that we don't pass those problems to our children.
You want to be taken action.
So the only answer to hate speech or bad speech is more speech.
Within that is the freedom of religion. Without expression, the right to discuss our ideas and differences, we would get nowhere.
And why is it so important that individuals share this message?
Because individuals build families, families form communities, and communities, they shape nations. That's why it's important for us to continue to keep this torch lit.
And that's what we're doing. We are here to shift the culture's narrative. We're here to blaze change. I'm Vaughn Kensington.
I'm EmmaSara,
host of the Ignite Voices TV show. Remember, keep that torch lit. Go to ignitevoices.com. Go out and blaze change.
When I was younger, I made poor choices. I made bad decisions. I am a convicted felon that has come home and completely changed my life around. I've had several successful businesses. We are not victims, we're victors.
Hi, I'm EmmaSara here with Ignite Voices, and I have influencer, public figure, Craig Long here. And listen, okay, you have become influential in your own right, but you know, everybody has a story, Craig, and I would love if you just give, a short testimony of your testimony.
Yeah. Again, my name is Craig Long, 45. I'm known for mean tweet commentary. I always tell people you're born looking like your mother and your father, but you will die looking like your decisions.
Wow.
For me, when I was younger, I made poor choices. I made bad decisions that ultimately led me to having to do time. So I tell people my story. I went from a convict to a conservative. And only in America can you be a convicted felon and come home and turn your entire life around.
Praise God.
To successful businesses, to restoring all your rights back, being able to vote, do notary and jury duty, to only turn around and petition the court so that you can get your Second Amendment rights back to purchase firearm and ammunition. Only in America can you be a convicted felon.
That's right.
And also vote for a convicted felon.
Can we just drop a mic right there? Like you just open a can of worms right there.
Did open a can.
Okay, so, let's just go there for a minute there, because that's where we're at right now. So what do you feel about what's going on with, the election and things right now?
Well, we know that the left, the Democratic regime, they have done everything. And I'm sure we're going to see more of their shenanigans as time goes to try to stop this man, slow this man down, try to keep him from being able to campaign, putting gag orders on him, shiesty courts from 18 years ago, things like that. So they've done everything to try to suppress the real American people, the real voter suppression from us being able to vote for the person that we want to vote for. The people want Trump back in office.
My question is, why would anybody want to put somebody in office, okay, for those who already voted for, why would you want to put somebody in office that is working to suppress you? We already know, okay, President Trump, he's not a perfect man, and I said earlier, we're not voting for a pastor or, voting a pastor. We need a president, we need a businessman, and we've already seen, he already has a track record of his border security. We had the safest borders with him and Tom Homan, which we had Tom Homan on here, some months ago. And I just, when we look at the track record of what Biden's done, okay, versus what Trump has done, even for the Black community, why don't you go there?
Well, I mean, that's one of the barriers that I have to help fight and break down within just the Black community. Black conservatives, we got a bad rep. So I'm often trying to refine and retune how I bridge that gap from us not being what has been deemed as monolithic. Like, we all know that the majority of Black folks, they vote Democrat because their grandmama and their mamas and daddies have voted that way. But we don't all think the same. We don't all vote the same. We don't all believe or do the same things. So sometimes we have to think outside of the box, do our own research, but also just educate people and give the history so that people can understand that, hey, we don't all think the same. We don't do all the same thing. And it's okay to not vote Democrat. It's okay to be independent. It's okay if you want to support Trump. So it's just finding those connecting points with people and breaking those barriers so that we can make that connected bridge to get other people to understand, hey man, we're not all the same.
And I agree with that, because I think that, some people might think, oh, we're going against our ancestry, or going against the people because we're going, conservative, but that's not the truth, because you're representing what could have been destruction for the rest of your life, but what happens when you're living in a great nation that gives you the opportunity to start fresh. And the fact is that President Trump, if you look at his administration, he actually decreased prison time for
step out.
And he did that, and then also he supported the I think Ready to Work, which is to do programs for people who are getting out of prison to get them ready to work. And so, I mean, the facts speak for themselves. Right here, this is what America stands for, is that we make mistakes. Everybody, President Trump has made mistakes, okay? Nothing that he should be getting what he's getting right now. That is not due to him, but I just wanted to bring Craig on today to just give you a representation of even Blexit, because Blexit is about, we are not victims, we are victors. And as we're wrapping it up, I just want to give you the opportunity to
That's absolutely right. We're not victims, we're victors. But we have a lot of people that push that narrative that somehow people on the 13th floor are somehow holding us back, but they're not. Here I am, a convicted felon that has come home and completely changed my life around. I've had several successful businesses. I've had businesses fail. It's part of life, it's a part of the process, but I continue to pick myself up, learn new skills, and apply myself to this great nation, this nation that our ancestors of all shades of color have paved the way so that we can have the lives that we have today. So we have to just continue to keep fighting, continue to be your own light, and go out there and empower people and impact.
Yes, that's right. So we're here at the People's Convention in Detroit. I'm so glad that we ran into each other. We got some big business coming up, so you guys will stay tuned for that. I'm EmmaSara here with Craig Long. Thank you so much, sir. And remember, y'all go out and blaze change. I'm EmmaSara. Thanks for watching.
Absolutely.